Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jayo Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita, Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda,
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda,
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda,
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda,
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda,
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda,
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda,
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda,
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda,
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda,
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda,
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Om Gyanatimrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuramitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamhayam Dadati Svapadantikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripadamaham vande Sri Guru Dinotaranam Paramanand Maravam Sri Chaitanyeshwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So today we're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 8th chapter, talks between the Lord and Ramananda Roy. And we are on text number 1 second. Yeah. Text 129 and onwards. Sanyasi Balia Morena Kariha Vanchana Krishna Radha Tattva Kahi Purna Kara Mana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, please do not try to cheat me, thinking of me as a learned sannyasi. Please satisfy my mind by just describing the truth of Radha and Krishna. Sri Ramananda Roy was a great devotee of the Lord and a lover of God, and although his mind could not be covered by Krishna's illusory energy, and although he could understand the mind of the Lord, which was very strong and intense, Ramananda's mind became a little agitated. Report. The perfect devotee always acts according to the desires of the Supreme Personality Godhead, but a materialistic man is carried away by the waves of the material energy. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said, Mayara vashe yachcha veshe kachcha habudububai. A person under the grip of the material energy is carried away by the waves of that illusory energy. In other words, a person in the material world is a servant of Maya. However, a person in the spiritual energy is a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although Ramananda Roy knew that nothing was unknown to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he nevertheless began to speak further on the subject because the Lord desired it. Read a couple of more verses till the next topic starts. 132. Sri Ramananda Roy said,
Good souls in distant lands.
Sri Ramananda Roy said, I'm just a dancing puppet and you pull the strings. Whichever way you make me dance, I will dance. My dear Lord, my tongue is just like a stringed instrument, and you are its player. Therefore I simply vibrate whatever arises in your mind. So, here, Mahaprabhu is deflecting. He's saying that you're praising me, but you're treating me like I would be a very elevated person. But he's not taking that credit. So he's showing his humility and he's expressing his wish that he simply wants to hear about Radha and Krishna. And Ramananda Roy, he obliges, which means he is fulfilling that desire of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he could not be covered by the Lord's Maya. And that is because he was very firmly fixed in his resolve of worshiping the Lord. So someone who is absorbed in Krishna's service cannot be touched by the external energy, by the illusory potency of the Lord. Daivihi gunamai mama maya duratya mamevaye papadyante maya metam tarantite. In other words, if you want to be free from Maya, from the illusory potency, we have to take refuge in Krishna's internal potency, because this is the only two choices that we have. The blue pill or the red pill. What's it going to be, you know? We are small, we're tatasta. Tatasta means where the water meets the land. It's that fine line, and it's continuously moving, so we can go either way. We kind of borderline. That's why when people come here, they're a bit borderline, so they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It can go many ways. And then the question is, who attracts me more? Now Krishna is all attractive, but because Maya is his potency,
Also pretty attractive.
she's also doing pretty good. Like, there's a lot of people in her camp, and they're rooting for that. So, how to stay continuously attracted by Krishna? We have to have a strong, resolute desire to serve Krishna. Now here we hear in this verse that Mahaprabhu's mind was very strong and intense. And Ramananda Roy became a little agitated, he became a little emotional, not because of material influences, but because the Lord was desiring to hear highly elevated topics. So as he was contemplating and meditating, he became affected by the internal potency, by his remembrance of Krishna's pastimes, and that is natural for a devotee. Therefore, that is the ideal state of a devotee, that his heart, his mind is always attracted by Krishna, and that is what is moving and motivating and inspiring him. Whereas a person in the material world, as it is stated by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which is under the strong grip of material energy, is carried away by those waves of the illusory energy. Michche no mayaravashe yachchabeshe kachcha habudububai. Ye Krishna das e vishwas karle tara dukkanai. So in his songs, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's taking the humble position and he's saying, I am being tossed around by the waves of material energy, but somehow Mahaprabhu's mercy has touched me and I have gotten this chance of taking to devotional service. So again, the teacher, the Acharya, is teaching by example and showing us that the humility is what ultimately attracts Krishna's grace and compassion. And unless that humility is there, Krishna will not personally interfere. So Ramananda Roy had that humility, and therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very attracted to him and cannot stay away from him and wants to associate with him, and they are both feeding off each other and drawing out more and more deeper realizations and more devotional ecstasies as we're going through this talk. It's pretty intense now. It's they're just about to take off now. They're just on the launch pad and they're about to take off. So, how to engage our emotions in Krishna's service? It means we have to first of all recognize that we have emotions, that we are sentient beings. We're not just inert. Like this microphone, it sounds like it's sentient, but actually it's not. It's just a combination of Bhumir, Apo, Nalo, Vayu. It's just a contraption, but there is no jiva, there is no atma in there, and therefore it's inert. But we are individual sentient beings, and that means sentient means we're conscious, we have senses, and unless we use that consciousness and those senses in Krishna's service, then they will drag us again to the material experience, to the material variety. Because how long can you sit on the fence? Have you ever tried sitting on a fence? As a kid?
Mm-hmm.
If not, you had a miserable childhood, and you should go and try it out again. Sit on a fence, see how long you last. At some point, you have to get off the fence, either on this side or on that side, because sitting on the fence is not a permanent, sustainable type of experience. Even if you think you're having a great time up there, at some point you need to get down and start doing stuff again. So in a similar way, yenye ravindaksha vimukta maninas tvayasta bhava ravishuddha buddhaya aruya krichrena paramapatamata patantya donadrida yushma dangrayaha. There's so many people who engage themselves with science, with philosophy, with yoga, and they think in their minds that they're very elevated, very advanced, very knowledgeable, even very austere and detached. But because they have refused to take shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna, all their endeavors are simply krichrena. They're just a bunch of hard, intense labor. Kastan kaman, aratevit bujande. They're foaming at the mouth. They're just working very hard in order to try to establish themselves in a certain situation or position that will not last. And even they may have achieved a certain state of tranquility in impersonal understanding. Like nowadays, it's very popular to do secular mindfulness. Have you heard of that concept? But how long can you stay in that headspace? It's not for very long, and people have great trouble to even grasp that concept, what to speak of engaging in it. And eventually they come back again. As Prabhupada was saying, even all these sannyasis and yogis, they come back, they engage in politics, they open hospitals, they open charities, they again get involved with the mundane variety. Why? Because we need rasa. Krishna is rasa bihari. He's the summum bonum. He's the origin and the enjoyer of all rasas. Raso vai saha. So he's continuously enjoying all these different mellows and emotions. And because we are small Krishna, little Krishna, so we're also hankering, we're also looking for that taste. And even though you might be practicing Krishna consciousness, and you might be chanting and following principles, etc., but that tendency is still always there. Let me look. Maybe there is something. Did you ever have that desire? Let me go and see what's there. Only looking, not buying. And people go to the stores and they just feeling the fabrics, trying to get some sensory stimuli, some type of experience. But ultimately it is not satisfying, it is frustrating because it's not really touching the soul, it's not really connecting to the heart, our innermost desires. So Krishna consciousness is a festival, and it is a feast for all our sensory faculties, and therefore Srila Prabhupada, he has devised this all-attractive method through this International Society for Krishna Consciousness, where all the senses can be engaged in the service of the master of the senses, thus become purified and ultimately elevate a person to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. So our goal here at Harmony Collective is to make things as attractive as possible, so that any person who walks in the door will only have one question and one question in mind. What is that, Mukunda?
How can I serve Krishna? Oh, no.
Well, that's pretty advanced.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. That's a good starting. That's a good starting point, But we're not there yet. So work with me, people.
How can I join?
How can I be part of this? How can I be part of this? Because this looks, smells, tastes, feels like fun. But if it doesn't, then people only have one question in mind. How can I get out of here as quick as possible and forget about this experience and this place? So the choice is ours. It all depends on how we are collaborating in order to make people experience the actual essence of Krishna consciousness. So our success is not quantifiable in terms of, sometimes we boast, oh, so many people clicked on my article, so many people watched my thing, so many people this, so many people that. Okay, fine, but how many people came back? What's the call to action? There is where you actually see the traction, whether you have grit. How many people want to engage with you? How many people know that there is a consistent product and a consistent experience? Any type of activity we do in Krishna consciousness, we should have a follow-up strategy. Like after class, what's your follow-up strategy?
Breakfast.
Very good. Very good. After breakfast, you take your nap. Confirmed. And after that, you engage in practical devotional service because you have a plan. He who fails to plan, plans to fail. If you don't have a plan, Maya has got a plan for you. She already got it figured out. And there's many different varieties of it. So get busy making plans for Krishna. And be ready that that plan may have to adjust, and because we have our plan and Krishna has his plan. Let's see who wins. So you got to have a follow-up strategy. We should not be just feeling great about ourselves because we're doing a little something. But we should ask ourselves, how can I actually please Guru and Krishna? Yasyadeve parabhakti retadeve tatagurau tasyaite katitayarta prakashanti mahatmana. When you please the spiritual master, all these different esoteric topics will become revealed in your heart. The zip file will get unzipped, and that whole gamut of wisdom will just manifest by the mercy of the spiritual master. And that is amazing. Just like me, I'm tech illiterate. When I touch things, they stop working. But I have a friend. When he steps into the room, things start to work. Just because he's got that Shakti, he's got that potency, that energy. So, and we can develop the energy for attracting people to Krishna consciousness by becoming so deeply absorbed in our bhajan, we have inspirational sadhana, that Krishna is attracted and he's appearing, just like when Advaita Acharya was offering tulsi leaves and Ganges water to Shalagram Shila, and he's calling out, Hunkar, he's calling out loudly. The Lord awoke from his mystic slumber and he felt obliged to appear because his devotee was calling him. So in a similar way, if we're not calling the Lord, why should he come and why should he bother us? You're okay, I'm okay, everyone's okay, everything's fine. So you got to have a follow-up strategy. You got to have a plan. It's not good enough to just throw a few seeds out there and say, okay, now fend for yourself. You got to have a follow-up strategy. I remember I went door to door in Switzerland in the mid-80s. It was 1985, to be precise. And I was in a pretty posh neighborhood, big houses, big fences, big dogs. And it was pretty difficult. A lot of walking and very little result. Yeah, not so much talking. But one lady, she took 3 books and she mentioned that her nephew had been to India. And I said, really? Can you give me his contact? And this is Switzerland. People give you the contact. They're not like, what do you want? So she gave me his contact. And I called him, and he and his friend showed up a few weeks later for the Sunday feast. And they both had long hair and watery red eyes because they just smoked some pot. And they thought they knew everything. There's just a bunch of proud, wealthy kids. But I was just happy-go-lucky Bhakta, Nico, and I just was, very enthusiastic, and I did not mind. So I just gave them the grand tour and made sure they had darshan and prasadam and this and that. And at the end, in my usual fashion, I thought, let's try. So I just put the Bhagavatam set there. And they just said, we already know everything, but we take it. Here is $300. And they packed it and they went. And I was like, okay, fair enough. And they kept on coming periodically, but they were kind of not so serious. Till one day, Bhakti Chirumraj showed up and gave a talk. And it just blew them out of the water. They just went kaboom. And then they transformed their big estate, which is in one of the best areas of Switzerland, into a preaching center. And all their friends who were formerly hanging out and doing no good together started to become more inclined and more interested in Krishna consciousness. And from that group, about 15 people got initiated. So if you're somewhere on a street corner chanting Hare Krishna, or going in some upscale neighborhood, and people are not very responsive. And you're thinking, why am I wasting my time here? Krishna has a plan, and he responds to the sincere calling of his devotees. Because at that point, we had just started. We printed these little postcards where we took people's names and contacts, and then had little boxes to tick and comments to make. And it was kind of a new thing back then. But I was like, let's try this out and see if it works. Huh? And guess what? It did work. It did work. Of course, we had boxes of those cards, and sometimes we got too lazy and didn't follow up, and then you could just, dispose of them a few months or years later. Like I remember we went on Warped Tour, and we collected 6,000 contacts from kids who sat down in mantra booth. Advaita and me, we were having that mantra booth experience. And we sat them down. Do you want to learn how to become a happy human in 60 seconds? That was our mantra. We pulled them into the booth, we sat them down, we taught them the mantra, we gave them little beads, they got a lollipop, a mantra card, and we had them fill out their contacts. So we got 6,000 contacts of high school and college kids who chanted Hare Krishna and were happy about the experience. And then we ran into some glitches, which is normal. It's to be expected. So for 4 years, we couldn't access those contacts because there was some lack of trust between certain individuals. And after 4 years, we tried to reach out, and guess how many people responded?
What?
No, about a dozen asked, who the heck are you? And what do you want? Or what do you want from my kid? Or, so basically it was, if you wait for a few years, it's gone. They've moved on. They've forgotten about that whole thing. It's became covered. Okay, the next time they will see a Harinam, the next time they will see a devotee book, something is there.
Mm-hmm.
So something is there that will respond. And you see that sometimes, how people are like, yeah, I know you guys. You good guys, So they already had an experience previously. Do you ever have people who just walk up to you and say, you're Hare Krishna, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you go like, how did you know that? Huh? Or they just hand you money.
Mm-hmm.
And you go like, why? Because somebody already done all the talking.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they'll just grab a book, put the money there, and walk off. And you're like, what about my little talk? And they go like, it's okay, it's fine. So somebody already done all the talking. One time in the Ukraine, I took a night train from Kiev to Donetsk. And and I don't know if you do night trains here. Probably not.
You don't even have trains.
No, they have trains. Yeah, this is car country.
Yeah.
And the lobby doesn't like too much public transportation. So anyway, night trains, you have seen it in India. So I got in the night train, and there's two guys who came in, strong guys, shaved head, thick necks, tattoos. And one went straight up to me, like very close. And he asked, Krishnait? Like, are you Hare Krishna? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess, right?
Maybe?
Yeah, maybe. And he was, thank you for giving this knowledge to all the people. And I was, okay. Survived another near-death experience. Yeah, die before dying, And so he already had books. He liked the devotees. He wanted to know how to chant japa. So we had a little japa workshop there in the train as the train started. So, and he took some more books and he contributed. It was very nice. So he was there with his wife, his mother, his friend, and his kid. So they were staying in the compartment next to us. And I was thinking, okay, he got the books, he got the mantra, but he needs prasadam. But I don't have any prasadam because I'm on a night train. Where to get prasadam? But then I remembered, the devotees in Kiev had given me this big, huge bag with prasad. So never refuse prasadam. If people give you prasadam, it may not be for you. You may just be the messenger who carries it to somebody else. So always accept prasad. You can always distribute it. Same for gifts. Same for donations. Same for, most things. So in the morning, I knocked and the door opened and there was bottles of beer and unmentionable things and everybody was totally moded out, tamagun. But I brought samosas, cakes, sweet balls, and they were like, whoa! So, and then we arrived in Donetsk and it was freezing and raining and the devotees were not there. So I thought, it's a typical Hare Krishna reception. It's like when I arrived at the airport, So I just know it's supposed to be like that, okay? So get over it. So I just waited, and after 5 minutes or so, the devotees came. They probably went to a wrong train station or got holed up. I don't know. And they brought this huge garland, about this thick, literally. This thick, huge, massive garland. And just at that moment, as they brought me the garland, that family came out of the train. And the grandma was holding the little boy. So I took the garland, I put it on the little boy, and he felt like he's like the prince, of Saudi Arabia. and the whole family was totally blissed out. That same evening, the man came to the temple. And he participated in Gora Arti, Bhagavad Gita class, Sankirtan seminar, Prasad, and he said, now my family is convinced that Krishna consciousness is the path. Why? Because books, holy name, prasad, and the devotee extending themselves, going the extra mile, and doing whatever they can to make that connection. And initially it's just a human connection on the level of the emotions, the level of the senses. You have to meet people where they're at. And then you elevate them as much as possible. So he became very inspired. So in a similar way, we learn here from Chaitanya Charitamrita that if we want to share Krishna consciousness and have impact in people's lives, we must learn the art of, first of all, controlling our own senses and emotions, and then in connecting with people and taking them on that journey, trying to bring them closer to Krishna. So that's the message for today. Any questions or comments? Before you take off.
What's the time?
We got 3 minutes before take off.
I'm just thinking it's nice to hear from you because you've distributed enough books to know that books are not enough, that it does take a complete experience. And sometimes there's an overemphasis on book distribution, which then causes others to feel, everybody has at least like an intuitive sense that that's not enough, more needs to be done. So then it creates the opposite effect, that instead of people being comfortable with book distribution, seeing it as a very important part, they kind of reject it because there's an overemphasis.
Yeah.
So that's my comment, and now I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Oftentimes in the name of service, it's easy to do disservice, we step on other people or we ignore them, and then they feel not very inspired. And we have to safeguard against this. Just like here we can see both are very elevated, very knowledgeable, very realized, but both are taking the humble position. And they say, no, I'm not the man, you're the man. And no, you're the man. And it's like a race to the bottom. And it's very attractive. Just reading about it makes you feel like, hey, they've got it. They've figured it out. And oftentimes we have people who are knowledgeable, who are skilled, who are expert, but the attitude is different. The attitude is slightly off. And so it's just not attractive. It's just, you can't connect to that frequency. You feel like it doesn't resonate. It doesn't speak to me. That's why it's so important that we have levels of assessment where we can actually see how are we doing, what is our performance. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, If you don't have a clue, you're just another drifter. So we have to have a clear north. We have to have an agenda, a way how to measure. And that is my community growing? Is my Krishna consciousness growing? Is Krishna happy? I just read this morning in the Bhagavatam in the first canto when Narada appeared. And Vyas, even though he's a literary incarnation, he wrote so many great books, but he was dissatisfied. And Prabhupada in the purport writes that unless you feel peace, happiness, and satisfaction at heart, you cannot achieve perfection. And that's why Narada appeared. And the first question that he asked him is, are you satisfied by taking your body and your mind to be as the objects or the instruments or the ideas of self-realization? Is that satisfying to you? And so Vyas had to, of course, he had to deny that. and then Narad started giving him the straight talk. So there are different reasons why this scenario can come upon. Oftentimes when we're insecure, we think my thing is the only thing, and to keep the main thing is the main thing, and everything else is considered a threat to our existence. And it makes things a little difficult for people who are thinking and thoughtful. So at the same time, we should encourage people who are in a lower stage or who are just starting out, and they may have that utsaha mai, that fanaticism or over enthusiasm, and we just say, yeah, like those people who were telling Prabhupada about their great visions, and they see the colors and the lights and whatnot when they chant. Yeah, just keep on chanting, it will go away. That's why we have a saying, just keep on chanting Hare Krishna, and after 10 years you'll actually become human. And it's a good thing, So we should not discourage people who are on a different level of realization. Understanding that the process is purifying and they're doing the good thing. And as one lady in Vrindavan said, whose letters to her son were thrown away by the temple president because he didn't want to post them and waste money. Her comment was, one day they will grow up. That was her compassionate remark. So it's good to take notice, but if we again jump on it and start reacting, then we are as immature as the people who are opinionated, and it becomes as unproductive or counterproductive, like that type of attitude. Because ultimately we're all learning, and speaking for myself, I'm sitting here because I made most of the mistakes, the ones that are in the book and the ones that are not in the book. And so, yeah, the school of hard knocks is tough. It takes a long time, and you can't make all the you don't live long enough to make all the mistakes. So we better learn from others. And that means reading the books, but that also means creating a sangha where we're comfortable to share our hearts and also our shortcomings, our deficiencies, our lackings, without feeling that people will exploit it or abuse us or talk down to us. So where we feel confident that we can actually, and that's what they're doing here. They're sharing their hearts. They're sharing their aspirations and also what could be perceived as their fears and their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities. And Krishna is manifesting in that Sangha. And it's very meaningful and it's very attractive. It's substantial. That's why we're studying about it hundreds of years later. So that's the purpose and that's the meaning of Sangha. And eventually, all these things can be overcome when we actually do Samyak Kirtan, when we actually perform Harinam Sankirtan in an environment of loving, kind, and considerate devotees. And all the things that are creating some distorting frequencies, they will just go far away because they cannot stay in that. Did you know that you can actually clean things by sound? That sound vibration is so powerful, you can actually clean things through sound. They do that, high frequency sound.
Yeah.
Like laser, through sound. That's pretty amazing,
That's the dirt and the rock.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing if you think about it. So.
And they use that in situations where they want to maintain the integrity of the sensitive piece they're cleaning.
Yeah.
So they use sound to knock off the dirt from things which are very delicate and valuable.
Yeah. So one time I was in a city in Mexico, Guanajuato. You heard of Guanajuato? And and there was a gentleman in a 3-piece suit and one of them fancy hats and leather shoes and big gold rings and a cane and a golden pocket watch, and he had a handlebar mustache. You know what a handlebar mustache is?
Mm-hmm.
Huh? They either go like this or like this. His was like this, like this.
Sounds like a tequila commercial.
Yeah, Salvador Dali, this type of thing. And so I went up to him and he was like, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? And I said to him, I'm trying to develop humility and introspection through selfless service. And he was like, humility and introspection through selfless service. Okay, how much is it? So he got the message, But if you start engaging on that level, you go nowhere. It'll just be another dogfight, So that's why it's so important that we avail ourselves of this information and we actually internalize it through our practice. Otherwise, we'll start engaging on the level of, and the problem is never solved on the level of the problem. It can only be solved by higher firepower. So we need that mercy, that special vision, Dibegyan Hride Prokashito. And that's why we're very fortunate that we have sadhus, we have Guru Parampara, who is giving us not just the bird's eye view, but the cosmogonal and the intergalactic and the view of the spiritual world of where this whole thing is going. Otherwise, we get stuck in our own little comfort zones. And they may be pseudo-spiritual, they may be completely sensual and mundane, or they may be whatever. But here in the CC, we're going to the top. And this is Prema. This is Goloka Vrindavan. It is Prayojan. So that is the discourse that is happening here. That is what Prabhupada is revealing to us. Therefore, no one can say that there's something lacking. You don't have the full thing. You got to go to this Baba or that guy or to this Kund or that Kund or to this group or that group. If you don't get it because you're too thick and you can't see what's going on here, then your coconut will be spin and split at some point in time, but it's going to hurt. But if we have a molecule of humility, we can actually appreciate what Prabhupada has given us and apply it and say, okay, I'm just a regular Joe, but I'm happy to collaborate with others because I know that the process is potent and then Krishna will reveal himself. He will manifest himself. So the points we're trying to make today is that you got to have a plan for outreach, but also a plan for follow-up. And you got to be determined to create a Sangha, a society, where devotees are comfortable and confident to share their aspirations, their fears, and their shortcomings, and to help each other to actually experience the real connection and satisfaction. Otherwise, our senses and our emotional desires will drag us back into the material whirlpool, and we will not be able to sustain our Krishna consciousness. Or we know eventually they come back, but it will just take longer time. And as we see, as Kali Yuga progresses, we should not make plans to stick around for too long because things are not doing that great. But we should have an exit strategy. We should know how we can actually progress in this lifetime. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, nice.
We can hear a little bit more. They are taking off, but we have a few more minutes. What about this? Do I take it home or?
Yeah, could you hold on to that? Thank you. Read will safeguard it.
All right. See you soon.
Arrivo.
So, any other topics for discussion or comments?
I was thinking about sustainable, Krishna consciousness, or state, of service, to get in a place where, going up and down all the time.
Steadiness.
It's a niche that is something that, I guess, a state that one reach when one overcomes the unartability and then it's not fixed.
No, steadiness is a quality that's right there from the beginning, Utsahan nishya dharyat. Steadfastness, to be steady in one's performance of devotional service. So, I wouldn't want to compare this stage with that stage and this and that because purification happens all the way up to the higher stages, even when you're in bhava, there's still some impressions, there's still some lingering. So steadiness is a very important quality of a devotee, and it is coming from a resolute determination that I want to serve Krishna and I will do my level best every day. Not that one day I'm all in, the next day I'm all out, and then the day after, let's see how it goes. That's whimsical. That's just chanchala, we're just flickering. And it doesn't give you very clear reading and not very much taste. Like if your gas or your light is flickering, you don't get much light from it or heat. But when you have a steady flame, then you can actually achieve something. So how to attain that steadiness? You associate with people who are stable, who are solid, and you connect yourself to the bedrock, to the shastra, to the holy name, and to the practice. And you safeguard against your shortcomings. We all know we have certain blind spots in certain areas where we're not so great or we're vulnerable. And we safeguard so we do not get attacked by avidya, by ignorance from those sides. And that's why it's so important that we have association with devotees. Because everyone, unless they're pure devotee, they have blind spots. But when we have others, they can help us to safeguard and to help us make us stronger. So no man is an island. Don't think, oh, I'm a big tough guy, so I can manage by myself. I don't need no one. You see all those guys out there sitting on the porch drinking beer for the most of the day? Have you walked by them? You've seen them?
Yeah.
That's what they all think. I'm a big tough guy. I can manage by myself. Yeah, they can manage just fine as long as they get their check, Otherwise they don't manage too well. We have to realize I'm small, I'm dependent. I can't pull it off by myself. I need help. Otherwise, if we think we're very strong and tough, then Maya has got a very easy game. It's very easy. She can push us over anytime. Like the elephant in the river, he gets washed away. But the small fish who has taken shelter of the water can swim against the stream, can even swim upstream, can even go up waterfalls. So if you take shelter of the process of Krishna consciousness, you can even go against the current of material civilization. So steadiness is achieved by good association, by constant endeavor, and also by mercy. When we get mercy from Guru Krishna and the Vaishnavas, then we can overcome our shortcomings and we can become steady. Now, how do you become steady? By constantly endeavoring. I'm trying constantly to improve. I'm trying constantly to do better. But at some point it becomes really hard to do better. And then it's perceived as steadiness. But actually you're still striving for perfection. You're still endeavoring to go up. But it just becomes difficult. But you don't perceive the struggle, you just perceive the steadiness. And as soon as we think, I have arrived, I have achieved, I got it, I figured it out, I'm now initiated, or I live in a temple, or I'm a brahmachari, or I'm a Sankirtan devotee, or I'm a this, or I'm a that, or I finished reading a couple of books. As soon as you think you're done, you're done. As soon as you think you have achieved, it goes down. And that's a fact. So to keep that, stay humble and stay hungry. Keep that inquisitiveness and that humility and that searching. You remember when we came to Krishna consciousness and everything was fresh and exciting and new? And we were all full of enthusiasm and vigor. But then all of a sudden, we were Bhakta, Bhakta Jose and Bhakta Nico and Bhakta this and that. And we were ready to do any service and we were super stoked and excited. Huh? But then all of a sudden, you become Prabhu. Huh? And then all of a sudden, you want to become Mahaprabhu. So Mahaprabhu, what is he saying here? He's saying, don't try to cheat me and think of me as a learned sannyasi. I'm depending on you, on your good wishes and your kata. Please enlighten me, enlighten my mind, satisfy me by describing the truth of Radha and Krishna. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nayanya Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha and Krishna. But he is saying, you enlighten me about the topics of Radha and Krishna. So that's the right type of mentality and mindset. That will allow us to become steady. But as soon as we become complacent or arrogant or negligent or lackadaisical, boom, we'll go down. Or you just go bang ding 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 ding, and you're just on your merry-go-round, and whatever is the flavor of the moment, that's what you get. But it's not a very consistent experience for us and for the people who interact with us. And some days you're spectacular, and some days you're ferocious, and people think like, whoa, where did this guy come from, So we have to know, am I following the Vishnu Dutas or am I following the Yamadutas? We have to know. And it's by choice. It's a constant choice that we have. So stick around and stay in Krishna consciousness. And these qualities will naturally develop. But we also have our conditional nature. We have our constitutional, our Krishna conscious nature, but we also have our conditional nature. So we have to make sure that we are properly situated according to our propensity and fully engaged in Krishna service. Otherwise, our mind and our senses will again drag us into our, previous proclivities, So don't take it for granted. Don't think I have already arrived. I have achieved. Now I can start coasting because I have gas in the tank and, and a few bucks on my credit card. So then you lean out the window, and you start, going all easy style. Because when you least expect it, bang! That's when it snaps. That's when Maya gets you. And we have all noticed, right, in our life, when we get a little cocky, a little, negligent, that's when Maya strikes. And then we think, oh, bad luck. What was that? Nothing, just try a little harder, You can do it. After all. So humility is the key ingredient, and it makes these relationships very attractive. But it's not something you can fake. It's not, oh Prabhu, oh, you're so wonderful. And, Ati Bhakti Chorra Lakshan. Too much devotion is a sign of a thief. It's not about externals. It's about really our realization. We cannot fake humility. We can also not fake empathy. It's something real. That it's not just you get that t-shirt on and it's got the right slogan on, but then people take one look at you and they say like, it's a nice t-shirt, but the attitude is way off. It just doesn't match. And then it's like a stark contrast. And that's why just trying to be a good guy or a good girl is not good enough, because unless we actually align ourselves with the purpose of the acharyas, it will not work. Or it will work very minimally. And sometimes it's far. We may be in Maya, but still people become attracted and they take books in the holy name, even though, so you cannot obstruct the sun. Krishna consciousness will spread. Yet, if we actually take this to heart, then Krishna can use us as an instrument. And people will notice the difference. So they asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is a devotee, and the first time he told a person who once chants Hare Krishna. The next year he said a person who continuously chants Hare Krishna. And the third year, when he was asked the same question by the inhabitants of Kulinagram, headed by Satyaraj Khan, he said, that person whom you see and you start chanting, then that person is a devotee. So how do people react when they see us? Are they feeling attraction? Are they feeling inspiration? Are they feeling confidence and faith? Or are they running in the other direction and think, let me get away as far and as fast as possible? So these are some reflections. Thank you for your kind participation. And it's another week. Monday morning. It's a great time to get absorbed in devotional service. And that's where you see steadiness. What's happening on Monday morning. At the Sunday feast, everybody's very steady. They're very fixed, very surrendered. But what's going on Monday morning? I like Monday mornings. That's when you see what's really going on in a place. So wish you a great week and a great life in Krishna consciousness. If you want some excitement, you want some adventure, join the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's going to be very exciting.
I can wait.
Huh?
I can't wait.
Yeah, well, it's available. It's available. So keep reading, keep chanting, and Krishna will manifest all his blessings through this process. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Vanchakalpatarubhascha, Kripasindhavyacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna.
What to say?
Hmm?
You know,